Shortly before kickoff in the last game of the 1950 World Cup, the mayor of Rio de Janeiro, Angelo Mendes de Moraes, addressed the Brazil squad. "You players," he said, "will be hailed as champions by millions of compatriots in just a few hours. You, who I already salute as victors. I fulfilled my promise building this stadium, now do your duty and win the World Cup." Now, he was not the only one to think that victory for the hosts was guaranteed, but hubris, inevitably, is followed by nemesis, and the result was a defeat whose reverberations continue to be felt today, and a climax that cemented the importance of the World Cup in the global consciousness. The Second World War had meant that there was no World Cup in 1942 or 46. The tournament might have died out altogether had Brazil not lobbied hard to stage the 1950 edition. Getúlio Vargas, who'd seized power in a military coup in 1937, had used football to promote a spirit of national unity. He recognised the sport was one of the few things that linked every corner of his vast nation and had loudspeakers in public spaces broadcast commentary of national team games. Vargas had planned to bid for the 1942 World Cup, and although he was ousted in 1945, it was essentially his government's plan that won the bid for 1950. At its heart was an impossibly vast new stadium, the Maracanazo, with a capacity of around 175,000. Made of reinforced concrete, it was a futuristic construction that combined a European modernist aesthetic with the sensuous curves of the tropics. Or at least that was how it was regarded at the time, when the theories of the sociologist Gilberto Freyre held sway. Brazil, he argued, was the country of the future, because it was represented by the fusion of the best of all races. The journalist Mario Filho, after whom the stadium is officially named, claimed that in football terms that meant a combination of strength and power, cunning and grace. And it seemed to be working. Brazil eased through the first phase to reach the final four nation group. They thrashed Sweden 7-1 and Spain 6-1. To lift the World Cup, all they had to do was draw with Uruguay, who'd needed a late equaliser to draw with Spain and 2 late goals to beat Sweden. But Uruguay had a secret weapon. Imre Hirschel was part of the great Hungarian coaching diaspora. With no football experience, he'd talked himself into a coaching job in Argentina and proved hugely successful. Forced out by allegations that he'd acted as a go-between in a match-fixing scandal, he'd ended up coaching Peñarol in Montevideo, where he'd become very close to the great centre-half Obdúlio Varela. Nacional, the great rivals of Peñarol, wouldn't accept him as national coach, and so Juan Lopez was appointed instead. But it was Varela, the captain, who ran the team, and Varela remained in contact with Hirschel. The stadium was packed, perhaps 200,000 people squeezed in. The Uruguay winger, Julio Perez, was so anxious that he wet himself during the anthems. But Hirschel had suggested playing with a sweeper, a sort of 1-3-3-3 shape, and Brazil were flummoxed, never finding their rhythm. They did, though, take the lead early in the second half through Friacha. Varela, fearing what momentum could do, managed to delay the restart by 7 minutes, claiming offside and demanding an interpreter, although he knew there was nothing wrong with the goal. In the first half, Brazil's left-back, Bigode, kept hacking down Alcides Schija, Uruguay's rapid right-winger. Varela slapped him and warned him to stop. In the mythology of the game, Bigode backed down, and that was crucial. And with 24 minutes remaining, Guija crossed for Juan Schiaffino to slam in an equaliser, and the stadium fell silent. Brazil only had to hold out, but the mood had changed, and with 11 minutes to go, Guija darted in from the right. The goalkeeper, Moacir Barbosa, anticipating a cross, edged forward. Guija's scuffed shot scudded in at his near post, the ball sending up a puff of chalk like gun smoke as it crossed the line. Brazil had lost. This was the Maracanazo. The dashing of such hope demanded scapegoats, and they were found in Brazil's 3 black players, Juvenal, Bigode, and Barbosa. Barbosa had been named goalkeeper of the tournament, but it didn't matter. He recalled how years later a mother pointed him out to her child, saying, "That's the man who made Brazil cry." In 1994, working at the World Cup with the BBC, he was denied entry to the Brazil camp in case his misfortune proved infectious. "It is perhaps the greatest tragedy in contemporary Brazilian history," said the anthropologist Roberto Di Matta. And the fact that the blame was cast primarily at the black players exploded Freyre's ideal of a racially harmonious nation. Meanwhile, 450 miles to the west, in Bauru, a former footballer called Dondinho had held a party for his friends so they could listen to the match on the radio. When Brazil lost, Dondinho cried. It was the first time that his son had ever seen his father so upset. So he hugged him and he promised that he would win him a World Cup. And just 8 years later, Pelé made good on his promise. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and James Horncastle. With the latest transfer news and insight on every Premier League football story that matters, theathletic.com puts you inside football. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.